Hello there, and welcome to the Centrist Guy Show. So today we're reacting to Chris Christie's ABC interview coming out of the woodwork to criticize Trump and say how the Republican Party needs to be rid of Donald Trump, but they just can't do it because they're hooked on his voters. Let's go.
On this run for president, what do you make of it?
I mean, I think that the biggest frustration for me is that we have so many people in our party who complain about Donald Trump, but none of them are willing to do the hard work that needs to be done to rid our party and our country. Right, yeah. But they're unwilling to do any of the hard work that's necessary to rid our party and our country of Donald Trump. But, to me, George, the entire primary was over the night of the first debate.
Why?
Could it be it was over just because Donald Trump didn't even show up to the debates and he was actually the presumptive nominee at that point? Because none of them were calling out that he wasn't actually there other than Chris Christie. And this just shows the weakness of the Republican Party. They should have literally been like, where's Donald Trump? Where's Donald Trump? But the whole time mum's the word.
Because when they ask you, would you still support him if he was a convicted felon? And 6 of the 8 people raised their hands on that stage. What it says to the largest debate audience we were ever going to have during the primary is his conduct is normal. 6 of these 8 candidates who are running against him say it.
Imagine if every single Republican up there didn't raise their hand when they were asked that question. I think that would have sent a powerful message to the voters being like, hey, we don't accept this conduct. But none of them did it because they're all cucks to Donald Trump at that point, and they need his voters to even win the general. But guess what? Trump voters don't actually want you.
It's okay. So how do you expect voters to think it's not okay?
But what does it say about the Republican Party right now that you get booed when you say you wouldn't vote for a convicted felon to be president of the United States?
It says that none of the people in leadership have been willing to do the hard work to push back against Donald Trump's lies.
Your critics say it took you too long to get there.
Well, as all...
This is 100% true, Christie. You literally were on the Trump train in 2016. Then after he didn't give you a cabinet position, all of a sudden you hated Trump. So don't come at me now being like, hey, why is no one else criticizing Trump besides me? It took you a while to get there, but you actually got off the train eventually, and it was more or less sour grapes.
All of them lag far, far behind me.
Nikki Haley's still running in South Carolina. Does she have any chance?
I mean, hard for me to say. It doesn't look like it. I mean, the polling, interestingly, has been pretty accurate this year. New Hampshire ended pretty much the way we had polled. We thought it would end.
Which is why you got out?
To me, once I became convinced I couldn't beat him in New Hampshire, it was time to get out.
Then you had that hot mic moment.
She's going to get smoked. And you and I both know it. She's out to this.
I actually enjoy hot mic moments because you can actually hear their true thoughts. And he's like, she has no chance. And you know why she doesn't have a chance? Because Donald Trump is a hell of a salesman. And he's charismatic as hell. I'll give him that. I don't agree with him politically hardly at all. But at the same time, you got to give credit where credit's due.
What was going on there?
I'll tell you, George, it was a complete mistake. But the way I found out is actually the funniest part of the story. I had my phone on vibrate, but the only person whose ringtone burst through when I have it on vibrate is my son, Andrew. And the phone rang, and I picked it up, and I said, I'm getting ready to go out. He goes, hot mic, hot mic, hot mic. He was in the Dominican Republic watching on the live stream. And that's how I found out that the mic was hot.
Did you hear from Nikki Haley?
I did the next day. Yep. It was a 45-second conversation. She told me, I know it's a personal decision to get in a race, and it's a tough decision to get out. I heard everything you said last night, including the hot mic. And I said, uh-huh. And she said, well, good luck. And I said, good luck to you.
So she didn't ask for an apology, you didn't give one?
No, there's no apology warranted.
Can you
Imagine if this moment happened back in 2016. There was a hot mic moment, Chris Christie bashing Trump. I guarantee you Trump would have made him beg for forgiveness. And guess what? He would have apologized.
imagine endorsing her a little bit down the road?
No, not based on what she said. And look, imagine the position I'd be in if I endorsed someone who then turned around and endorsed Donald Trump. I'm not going to be put in that spot again, George. I made a decision in 2016, the only time in my political career where I endorsed someone purely for political reasons, even though I had some misgivings. And that's when I endorsed Donald Trump. And it was the biggest mistake I made in my political career. And I'm just not going to repeat that mistake for anybody.
Republicans, if Donald Trump won, would probably control the Senate. We don't know that they would control the House. We could be back in automatic impeachment land a week into the presidency.
And look, I think if the Senate had done their job in January of 2021 and convicted him, which I believe he'll be convicted by a jury of his peers.
There's actually a decent point here. If the Senate and the Congress actually did their jobs and actually said, no, we're impeaching Trump right now and he can never run for office ever again, the establishment could have gotten rid of Trump a long time ago. They chose not to because they thought he would actually go away. And it turns out people want Donald Trump still, so it is what it is.
For that conduct.
If it ever gets to trial.
I think it will. And my guess is that he will be, more likely than not, a convicted felon when he gets on the stage at the nominating convention in mid-July in Milwaukee.
If you have a book coming out today, what would Reagan do? Would he recognize the Republican Party today?
He would not. He would be dumbfounded by it. He would be absolutely perplexed. I think Reagan wouldn't have understood it, but he would have stood up, I think, and that's part of the reason I wrote the book.
So who do you vote for in the New Jersey primary in June?
I mean, my guess is that there won't be anybody else on the ballot to vote for other than Donald Trump by June. No, I would never write myself in. But yeah, I probably would just skip that part. I mean, look, the one thing I can tell you for sure is I don't know what I'm going to do in November, but I'm not voting for Donald Trump under any circumstances.
But isn't any vote that's not for Joe Biden, assuming it's the two of them and a handful of third-party candidates, isn't any vote that's not for Joe Biden to vote for Donald Trump?
And this is the uncomfortable reality that Democrats face, because any vote that's not for Joe Biden at this point is a vote for Donald Trump. So if you're going to protest vote and vote for any of the Green Party or Libertarian Party, you're effectively voting for Donald Trump, which is fine. You have every right to vote for whoever you want to vote for. I believe you should vote for the person you believe in and not be blackmailed just because, hey, Joe Biden's the nominee. If you don't want Trump, you got to vote for Joe Biden.
We could get into all the technicalities, and you
Well,
understand.
I think it's pretty clear that
No, but you get it. You know this as well as I do. In my state, my vote is not going to matter a lick. Okay, I don't know who the full field's going to be yet, and there might be a no labels candidate who I might.
No labels is going to drain more from Joe Biden than Donald Trump, isn't it?
I think it depends on who they nominate. If they nominate a strong Republican, it might not be the case.
They asked you?
They have not asked me, no.
But if they did?
Oh, I don't know. There'd be a long conversation between me and Mary Pat, I can guarantee you that.
But you haven't closed the door to it.
Well, what I've said in the past is that I'd have to see a path for anybody, not just me, but I think anybody who would accept that would need to see a path to 270 electoral votes. You know, if there's ever a time in our lifetime when a third-party candidate could make a difference, I think it's now. The question, though, is what kind of difference?
So play out as a strategist.
I think at this point, the only thing a third-party candidate could do is actually cause both Donald Trump and Joe Biden not to get enough electoral votes to become president. So then it gets thrown to the House of Representatives, and then they got to pick who's going to be president. And you saw how long it took for them to pick a speaker. Imagine how long it's going to take for them to figure out who should be president.
If you're running the campaign now to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president in 2024, what do you do?
Replace Joe Biden. I just think that Joe Biden is probably the only major Democrat who Donald Trump could beat. And I think that if President...
And Donald Trump may be the only Republican who Joe Biden can beat.
Exactly right. And, you know...
And this is the gambit that the powers that be are trying to force upon us. And Joe Biden is probably the weakest candidate we've ever had as far as an incumbent is concerned. His disapproval ratings are worse than Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter got destroyed by Ronald Reagan. So right now it seems like there's a high likelihood that Donald Trump will become president. The only X factor I can see is if Donald Trump goes to jail. Will that change the mind of some of the Republican voters? I think so. But will it change hardcore MAGA? Absolutely not. They'll vote for Donald Trump even if he's in jail.
I've known Joe Biden for 40 years. I like President Biden personally. Always have. But, you know, past the sell-by date. It's just time.
His argument is he did it once, he did it again, and the economy's improving on my watch.
He's a different guy, though, George. Like, Joe Biden could sell it better in 2020 than he's able to in 2024. And that is just a product of age. And this is not me making some clinical diagnosis. I'm making a political diagnosis that the guy isn't as good as he was 4 years ago. Bottom
line, you think you'll succeed in your mission to make sure Donald Trump is not president again?
I don't know, George, but it won't be for lack of trying. I can guarantee you that.
So there you have it. Do you think Chris Christie's right? Do you think that Donald Trump has just taken over the Republican Party? Or are they ever going to be rid of him? We'll have to wait and see. Let me know in the comments below.